My mamma's cold. She hasn't moved since yesterday, the little one whispered. The morning air hung thick with dew when Lily May's bare feet touched the weathered boards of the Hartwell porch. Her small fingers clutched the railing, dirt caked beneath her nails like tiny graves. Martha Hartwell looked up from her coffee, steam curling between them in the grey dawn light. My mamma's cold, Lily May whispered, her voice barely cutting through the silence. She hasn't moved since yesterday. Martha's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, ceramic exploding against the porch boards in sharp, violent pieces. What did you say, honey? Mama won't wake up. I shook her and shook her, but she just lay there breathing funny. Martha was already moving, her bare feet crunching over broken porcelain. How long has she been like this? Since yesterday morning. I made myself crackers for dinner, but there's no more milk. Sweet Jesus! Martha grabbed Lily May's hand, pulling her down the porch steps. Show me. They crossed the narrow strip of dead grass between the houses, Lily May's nightgown catching on thorns that grew wild along the property line. The Morrison house stood silent, its windows dark as closed eyes. Martha pushed through the front door without knocking. The hallway smelled of old coffee and something else. Something wrong. In here, Lily May whispered, pointing toward the back bedroom. Sarah Beth Morrison lay still, as death beneath a quilt their grandmother had sewn 40 years ago. Her face was pale as winter bone, lips slightly parted, chest rising and falling in shallow mechanical breaths. The room reeked of lavender sachets, and underneath it all, something chemical and bitter. Martha pressed her fingers to Sarah Beth's throat. The pulse was there, but weak, thready, like a dying bird. Sarah Beth, can you hear me? Nothing. Martha whispered a prayer under her breath, then turned to Lily May, who stood in the doorway like a ghost child. We need to call Sheriff Kane. Is she going to heaven like Daddy did? Martha's throat closed tight. She walked to the rotary phone on the nightstand, her fingers finding the numbers while Lily May climbed onto the bed. The little girl stroked her mother's cold hand with the careful tenderness of someone who had already learned that people disappear without warning, that mornings can arrive empty and wrong, that sometimes Mama stops being Mama and becomes something else entirely. The dial tone hummed in Martha's ear as heavy boots climbed the porch steps. She set the phone in its cradle just as the front door creaked open without invitation. Sheriff Kane filled the doorway, his bulk blocking the morning light. Deputy Mills, a shadow behind him. Martha! Kane's voice carried the weight of authority and something else, something that made Martha's spine stiffen. She's back here, Sheriff. Thank God you came so fast. Kane's boots echoed down the hallway, Mills trailing behind like a loyal dog. They crowded into the small bedroom where Sarah Beth lay motionless, Lily May still stroking her mother's pale hand. How long has she been like this? Kane asked, but his tone suggested he already knew. Since yesterday morning. Maybe longer. And her condition before this? Any episodes? Martha's hackles rose. What do you mean by episodes? Sarah Beth was fine yesterday. She was working in her garden, planning to can tomatoes this week. Kane moved to the nightstand, his thick fingers picking through prescription bottles Martha had never seen before. Pills with names she couldn't pronounce. She's been taking these long. I don't know what those are. Sarah Beth doesn't take medication. Mills leaned close to Kane's ear, whispering words that made Martha strain to listen. She caught fragments. Morrison situation. What the governor expects. What did he say? Martha demanded. Kane's eyes went cold. Nothing that concerns you, Martha. Everything about Sarah Beth concerns me. She's my neighbor, my friend, and she's having some kind of breakdown. We'll need to take her to County General for observation. Observation for what? She's not crazy. That's not for you to decide. Lily May pressed closer to Martha's side, her small body trembling against Martha's hip. The child couldn't understand the words, but she felt the tension crackling between the adults like electricity before a storm. The sound of an ambulance siren cut through the morning air, growing louder as it approached. Martha hadn't heard Kane call for paramedics. "You already called them," Martha said slowly. "Standard procedure." "Before you even looked at her?" Kane's jaw tightened. "Sarah Beth needs professional help." The paramedics pushed through the door with their equipment and clipboards, moving with the efficiency of people following a script. They loaded Sarah Beth onto a stretcher without checking her vitals, without asking questions, without the usual urgency that accompanies real emergencies. Martha watched them wheel Sarah Beth away, Lily May clinging to her waist, and something cold settled in her chest. This wasn't about helping Sarah Beth Morrison. This was about making her disappear. The fluorescent lights at County General buzzed, like dying insects overhead, casting everything in harsh white light that made skin look corpse pale. Martha sat in a plastic chair that squeaked every time she shifted. Lily May's small hand gripped tight in hers. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and fear. Dr. Phillips emerged from Sarah Beth's room, his face drawn tight with something that looked like guilt. He approached slowly, glancing over his shoulder before sitting across from them. "How is she?" Martha asked. "Stable. But Martha, there's something you need to know. Tell me." Phillips rubbed his forehead. "Sarah Beth wasn't sick. Someone's been drugging her." Martha's blood went cold. "What?" "Sedatives, heavy doses, probably for weeks, maybe longer. Who would do that?" Phillips glanced toward the hallway, where Sheriff Kane lingered by the vending machines, pretending to study candy bar selections. "I can't say. Can't or won't. Martha, please, just take Lily May home. Forget about this. Like hell I will. Who's been poisoning my friend?" Phillips leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Sarah Beth was fighting the county's eminent domain claim. You know that, right? On her land. That's been in her family for 3 generations. Prime development property. The governor wants it bad." Martha felt the pieces clicking together like bullets sliding into a chamber. She was organizing people, getting families together to fight back, making noise at town meetings, threatening lawsuits. So they drugged her to shut her up, to make her look unstable, unreliable. Who's going to trust the word of a woman having mental episodes? The horror of it settled over Martha like ice water. They hadn't just tried to silence Sarah Beth. They'd tried to steal her mind, her credibility, her ability to protect what was hers. "How many others?" Martha asked. "I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know." Lily May tugged on Martha's sleeve. "Is Mama going to be okay?" "Yes, baby. Mama's going to be fine." Philip stood, his hands shaking slightly. "Martha, be careful who you trust. Not everyone in this town is who they seem." Sheriff Kane's boots echoed across the linoleum as he approached, his badge catching the fluorescent light like a warning. "Everything all right here, Doc? Mrs. Hartwell? Hope there's not a problem?" Martha looked up at Kane's cold eyes and smiled with all the warmth of winter. "No problem at all, Sheriff. Just getting some good news about Sarah Beth's recovery." Phillips walked away quickly, not looking back. Martha's hands shook against the steering wheel as she pulled away from County General, Lily May, silent in the passenger seat. The gravel road to Dolores Mackey's farm stretched ahead like a lifeline. If anyone had answers, it was Dolores. Sarah, Beth's oldest friend, the woman who knew everyone's secrets in 3 counties. The farmhouse kitchen smelled of coffee and cinnamon rolls, but Dolores's face was grim when she opened the door. "I heard about Sarah Beth. Come in." Martha settled Lily May at the kitchen table with milk and cookies, while Dolores poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly. "They drugged her, Dolores, for weeks, maybe months," I wondered. "She seemed so foggy at the last town meeting." "You knew?" I suspected. "My grandmother always said, when women get too loud, they find ways to quiet us." The kitchen door opened as Ruth Ann Mitchell stepped inside without knocking, her face streaked with tears. "Martha, thank God. I heard Sarah Beth was in the hospital. Ruth Ann, what's wrong? It's happening again, just like with my sister Jenny. Dolores set down her coffee cup hard. Jenny was institutionalized last year, after she challenged the county assessor on our property taxes. Said our land was worth 10 times what they claimed. The door opened again. Beverly Coleman entered, her grey hair wild from the wind. Is it true about Sarah Beth? About the drugging? How did you hear? Martha asked. Word travels fast when it's the truth. My mother went through the same thing 20 years ago. Your mother died of natural causes, Dolores said carefully, after they found her wandering confused in her garden. Right after she filed complaints about water rights. Funny how she was sharp as a tack until she started fighting the county. Old Mrs. Campbell shuffled through the door, her cane tapping against the linoleum. At 85, she was the memory keeper of their community. You girls talking about the Morrison situation? Mrs. Campbell, how much do you know? Martha asked. Everything. Been watching it happen for 60 years. Watching what happen. The pattern. Woman gets too uppity, starts fighting the system, suddenly she's sick, confused, unreliable. Ruth Ann leaned forward. How many others? Dozens, maybe more. Certain families always win their disputes. Women who resist always break. Martha felt ice in her veins. This has been happening for decades? Generations. Beverly slammed her fist on the table. So what do we do about it? Mrs. Campbell's eyes were sharp as broken glass. We protect Sarah Beth, and we start fighting back. Dolores nodded slowly. The women have always known. We just never had proof before. Martha looked around the kitchen at these weathered faces, each carrying stories of loss and resistance. Then it's time we stopped knowing in silence. The women pushed through the hospital room door to find Sarah Beth sitting upright in bed, her eyes clear and sharp for the first time in weeks. She turned toward them with a gaze that burned like fire. They thought they broke me. Martha rushed to her bedside. Sarah Beth, you're awake. Really awake. I remember everything. The fog creeping in day by day, fighting to stay conscious while my own body betrayed me. What do you remember? Dolores asked quietly, Lily May's face when I couldn't answer her questions. Losing weeks of my daughter's childhood because I couldn't think straight. Watching myself disappear piece by piece. Ruth Ann gripped the bed rail. We know what they did to you. Drugged me. Made me look crazy so nobody would believe me when I fought for our land. Martha nodded. It's been happening for years, decades. Sarah Beth's fury built like storm clouds. I want to leave. I want to fight back. I want to make them pay. You can't, Beverly warned. Sheriff Kane is outside waiting. If you seem to recover too fast, they'll know we're onto them. So what do I do? Pretend to still be their victim. Mrs. Campbell stepped forward, her voice steady. You play their game better than they do. Appear weak while gathering strength. What strength? Records. I've kept them for 60 years. Every convenient diagnosis, every property transfer, every powerful man who benefited. Sarah Beth's eyes widened. You have proof? Patterns, names, dates, enough to show this isn't isolated incidents. Enough to destroy them. If we're smart about it. Sarah Beth looked toward the chair where Lily May slept, curled like a small animal seeking warmth. The sight of her daughter's peaceful face, after so much fear and confusion, made Sarah Beth's throat close tight. She asked me if I was going to heaven like her daddy. Sarah Beth whispered, What did you tell her? Martha asked. I couldn't answer. I was too lost in the fog they put me in. Dolores squeezed Sarah Beth's hand. You're here now. You're fighting back. Sarah Beth studied her sleeping daughter, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her small hands curled under her chin. Lily May is going to inherit a different world than this one. I swear it on my life. Then we'd better get started, Mrs. Campbell said. Because they're not going to make this easy. 1 week later, the women walked through the courthouse doors like an army of ghosts, seeking justice. Martha carried a box of Mrs. Campbell's yellowed records. Dolores held Dr. Phillips's reluctant written testimony. Sarah Beth, appearing fragile but moving with quiet determination, led them forward. Behind them, Lily May held Ruth Ann's hand, her small presence a reminder of what they were fighting for. The governor's voice echoed from his office as they approached. "The Morrison property development will proceed as planned, Sheriff. One way or another, what if she recovers? Starts making noise again?" Sheriff Kane's voice carried worry. "She won't." The women entered without knocking. The governor looked up from his mahogany desk, his face shifting from surprise to irritation. Sheriff Kane's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. "Sarah Beth," the governor said smoothly. "You look much better. I am better. Clear-minded for the first time in months. That's wonderful. Perhaps you should be resting." Sarah Beth set a folder on his desk. "Perhaps you should be explaining why someone's been slipping sedatives into my coffee for 3 months. The governor's composure flickered. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." Mrs. Campbell stepped forward, her cane tapping against the marble floor. "I have records going back 60 years. Every woman who fought you, every convenient diagnosis, every property that changed hands after the owner was declared mentally unfit. Those are serious accusations from a confused old woman." Ruth Ann pulled out a small recording device. "This is my sister Jenny talking to her doctor before she was institutionalized. Listen to how coherent she sounds." The governor's jaw tightened. "This is harassment. Beverly produced glass vials filled with murky water samples from the Morrison property. Industrial contamination you've been hiding. That's why you need her land. To bury your mistakes. You have no authority here." Martha smiled coldly. "We've already contacted state investigators, reporters, federal agencies. They're very interested in your pattern of convenient mental breakdowns." Sheriff Kane stood abruptly, his hand closing around his gun grip. "That's enough." The room went deadly silent. Then Lily May's small voice cut through the tension like a knife through flesh. "Don't hurt my mama again." The innocence in those words hit the room like a physical blow. The governor stared at this child, whose mother they had tried to erase, whose family they had nearly destroyed, whose trust in adults had been shattered by their greed. Something broke in the governor's face. The mask of power and control crumbled, revealing the hollow man beneath. "Stop! Just stop!" Spring sunlight filtered through the apple trees as Lily May chased butterflies between rows of tomato plants that stretched toward the sky. Sarah Beth's garden was thriving again, free from the poison that had once clouded both soil and mind. 6 months had passed since the courthouse confrontation that changed everything. "Mama, look how big the beans got," Lily May called, her voice bright with wonder. Sarah Beth smiled from where she knelt among the herbs, dirt under her fingernails the way it should be. "Everything grows better when it's not being poisoned, baby. Like you. Like me." Lily May skipped over, her face serious in the way children get when they're processing big thoughts. "What happened to the bad men? Governors facing federal charges. Sheriff Kane, too. Dr. Phillips told the truth about what they did, and now he's helping other people they hurt. And our house. We get to keep it? Forever." The land development fell through. Other families got their properties back too, Mrs. Campbell's voice called from the gate. "Morning, you two." She approached carrying a basket of fresh baked bread, her step lighter than it had been in years. "Mrs. Campbell," Sarah Beth rose, brushing dirt from her hands. "How are things in Turner County?" 3 women came forward there. "Seems our story traveled. They're finding the same patterns we did. Change is spreading, like wildfire." "Good wildfire." Lily May tugged on Sarah Beth's sleeve. "Mama, are you really going to be sheriff? If people vote for me, would you like that? Will you wear a badge?" "A different kind of badge. One that means protecting people instead of hurting them." Mrs. Campbell chuckled. "This child's going to grow up in a different world than we did." Sarah Beth knelt beside Lily May, taking her small hands. "Sometimes people get lost in darkness, baby. They do terrible things because they forget what light looks like. But light always finds a way back. Will the bad men come back? No, but more importantly, you're going to grow up knowing your own strength, your own voice, your own worth. Nobody will ever be able to take that from you." Lily May broke free and ran toward the far end of the garden, where sunflowers towered above her head, their faces following the morning sun. "Mama, look how tall everything grew." Sarah Beth watched her daughter bloom in the golden light, finally safe to become exactly who she was meant to be.